What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of At a Glance, the series in which I give you an appetizer, sampler, glimpse into a particular faction in 40k. And the goal behind it is to help you decide if you want to look further into the Force on your own, or maybe even start collecting that Force as well. So, up on the chopping block this time, by request, is the Alpha Legion Post Heresy, a Chaos Space Marine Force, a traitor force. I said it. Um, but, anyways, um, this is a cool force that does have a lot of memes about, bro, I forgot which side I was on, and a lot of conspiracy tinfoil hat stuff surrounding it. If you're new to Alpha Legion, the best thing I can suggest for you is just to focus specifically on what's in the codex they're in and what's in their written fluff versus what the people's interpretation of it. One of the more annoying things about their fluff, particularly when you read on the Horus Heresy side of things, from the Forged with Horus Heresy books, and even how it's presented in the codex they're in, the Chaos Space Marine Codex, is that it's presented as everything you learn about them isn't true, or isn't fully true. Some of it's a lie, some of it's deceit, some of the lies are truth, and some of the truth are lies, and some of the lies are lies but told by truth, or full of truth, and it becomes annoying and potentially confusing, especially when you throw all the memes and conspiracy into the mix. So, to keep it simple, we are looking at a Chaos Space Marine force, a traitor force. They fight against the Imperium tooth and nail at every corner. While there is a big backing and support for them still being secretively loyal, personally, I just don't see it, and I've looked into their fluff, and I get why they say that, and there is always potential to have a sub-faction, that is. So what I will say, before going deeper into the Alpha Legion, is they came from the first founding, so they are one of the original 20 legions. They are the 20th legion. And those legions that went traitor, of which the Alpha Legion are amongst, it wasn't 100% commitment. So there's always going to be splinter cells, if you will, of loyalty potential out there. So with that said, let's check out the color scheme of the Alpha Legion, because they are pretty cool for us, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the minutia of all of the conspiracy. But color-wise, they are basically sea blue with emerald green accenting to the main armor, and that's just the main armor color. Basically, the way you would do it is you lay down the blue and how you see fit, whether you want to do a traditional blue or you want to do kind of a metallicized blue, and then you would use the green to highlight it, and if you so desired, to give scale effect, like Hydra scales, on it as a shimmer. It's not done across the entirety of the armor. You do like a portion of one bit of leg armor, a portion of a shoulder pad, a portion of a torso area, just a little bit, to kind of suggest a shimmer. Like it's not painted on by design to be there permanently, but their armor color and the way the padding is set up on the armor is that when the light hits it a certain way, you see the shimmering of the green scales on the blue. It's a really cool effect. It can be a little complicated and maybe a little bit intimidating. At the very least, you can just do the blue highlighted by the green, which is a very interesting and non-traditional paint scheme for these guys. You wouldn't typically go with such a stark green highlight to a blue, but you deal with the Alpha Legion and it works. That's their setup, so that's pretty cool. Now, with that said, their symbol is the multi-headed Hydra. They use silver as trim color and ornate colorations. They don't do gold, they do silver. And their weapons tend to be in black with red helmet lenses. A very cool, visually striking force. When done up, I don't want to say properly, but when done up to the the full potential, very visually striking, very cool looking force on the tabletop. So with that said, the Alpha Legion tactically is a force you could sum up as a jack of all trade, master of none force, but it's not as simple as that. Their philosophy is very much that of the Hydra head, cut off one and two shall take its place type of deal. They have a very independent chain of command, or the chain of command is more of a web of command, because a lot of freedom and leeway is given on the tactical level to the basic squad sergeants because they do a lot of infiltration and sabotage roles and lightning strikes and behind enemy lines stuff. And a more traditional chain of command just wouldn't be able to cope with that very well. So they give a lot of degree of freedom to their uh, to their basic squad leaders as well. This allows them to perform and issue orders and do things at a greater range, if you will, outside of the traditional sphere of influence of a command structure, which is pretty cool. They meticulously plan everything. So they come across as jack of all trades only because they plan for all accounts, and not just that they have that flexibility in their way of warfare to permit things to happen. It's not that like no other force plans. Every force, a Star Taste level force, is doing plenty of planning. But when you first start encountering an attack from the Alpha Legion, it's not the first time they've been in your system. Months, even years prior, they had an infiltrator force come in to set up the cultist cells, set up revolts, sabotage, propaganda, things of that nature. So, yes, they are physically attacking you out in the open for the first time when their fleet arrives, but in actuality, they've already been infecting your system. And when they start attacking, all of a sudden, manufactorum plants start to have severe problems and burning, catch fire and burn down. Your orbital defenses are failing for whatever reason, maybe even firing upon each other. You have strife, riots, revolts, things like that happening, all at the same time that you're trying to deal with a Chaos Space Marine force bearing down on you. So they like to hit you from multi different levels at the same time all at once. It's kind of their thing. Tons and tons of meticulous planning for the Alpha Legion. As a result, playstyle wise, they're very open-ended. So if you like this idea of secret agent operative, galaxy brain plays, if you will, in terms of fluff and planning, that's all the Alpha Legion. If that really appeals to you, if you like the idea that you have a force that has its own motives, and maybe just maybe the idea of loyalty isn't completely gone amongst the Alpha Legion ranks, then to the Imperium, maybe just maybe some of the stuff is true amongst their fluff. Well, then the Alpha Legion is definitely a force that's going to appeal to you. Of course, if you like that coloration too. It's a non-traditional chaos force. They and a couple of others, such as the Night Lords and the Iron Warriors, are chaos forces that aren't your more typical, praise the chaos gods. We have warp blessed reinforcements and power. They're not your typical ones. And the Alpha Legion is probably the most atypical of the three that I mentioned because they spend the most time outside of the warp of the three. So they are more at home in real space, and therefore they have very little, but still have some demonic support, and whether it's in the form of demon weapons, some actual demons, or a defiler, or things like that, they still have that. It's just to a much, much lesser degree. So if you like that concept, the Alpha Legion is definitely a force for you. They are much more open-ended in terms of playstyle than the other two I mentioned of those three, and they are as open-ended as Black Legion, but also limited because of their nature of not being so heavily warp reliant, if that makes any sense. And I'll make a bit more sense later on. But anyway, that's just a bit of a big appetizer, sampler glimpse there, if you will, of the Alpha Legion. So with that said, when it comes to collecting these Chaos guys, it's going to be the Chaos Space Marine Codex that I recommend because they're in it, right? They're in it. There are Legion traits in there. Legion traits, okay, but they're more defined about how you build their list. Chaos Cultist forces are going to be, Supreme Chaos Space Marine forces, Chosen, Havocs, Terminators, things of that nature. A Defiler can work out, no problem, because it's kind of bound within a machine, the demonic essence, so that could work. And, they bound it to their will. It kind of makes sense. But the Alpha Legion is open-ended in their playstyle, but limited in what you take out of the Chaos Space Marine Codex, where Black Legion can take literally everything. The Alpha Legion is not going to have Rubric Marines or Khorne Berserkers or anything like that amongst their force. They are more with the Chosen and the Chaos Standard Space Marine squads and the Terminators and a Defiler Shore and Chaos Vindicator or whatever else, and Havocs. They are more, and Cultist squads. Plenty of Cultist squads. That's more what they're about. It's less about the demonic reinforcement and more about the more material reinforcements. With that said, we are looking at the Chaos Space Marine Codex due to the fact that we have the Cultist capability to field in there right out the gate. We do have some of the more Chaosy stuff that they will have on their side in very small degrees. And they do have the Legion trait in there, which can work out well for them. So, with that said, when it comes to collecting them physically, because when it comes to playing them and starting your collection, you need the Codex. So you got the Chaos Space Marine Codex. From there, you can now go forth and start collecting model-wise stuff. Any generic Chaos bits and kits are going to work for you. Any of the Alpha Legion Heresy era bits and kits from Forge World, I think, can also work for you. Because while they do have this stereotypical Chaos Space Marine look with the horn helmets and the spikes and the weird backpack and everything, they also are equally at home to have a more standard traditional look like they did during the Crusade. And a blending of the two is very plausible and very cool looking, actually. So the thing is that you would probably want to take away is you want to make sure you're using things that don't have the Imperial Eagle on it. They never had access. They never wore that before anyway. You could say they would wear it for misdirection, but just to make it easier on yourself, you would just want to stick to generic Chaos bits, the Forge World, Horus Heresy, Alpha Legion specific stuff, because that stuff looks really cool, and then maybe a Mark 6 helmet or Heresy era bits as well. Like GW has the Mark 3 and the Mark 4 kits, Tartaros and Cataphractii kits. Those could work for you too, in all honesty. And you could have some fun kind of dolling them up chaos-wise how you want. So there's a lot of potential when it comes to collecting the Alpha Legion. They're much more open-ended, in my opinion, in terms of the bits and stuff you're using to build them than a more traditional Chaos Force. Both because of their time spent in real space and also due to their shtick in nature. It just makes a lot more sense, in my opinion. So you could even use some regular Space Marine kits, that, like a regular Space Marine legs or a torso that just has a skull on it, stuff like that, in conjunction with the Chaos bits or the Alpha Legion bits. So some cool food for thought there when you start painting them up in their blue with the emerald green highlighting or whatever. They're going to come across really cool looking. Although there is a big push by a lot of people, and I'm completely on board with this as well, where they're just painting them up in the same way that they were painted up in the Horus Heresy. So that metallicized blue with not so much of a green accenting to it, just kind of that really interesting light metallicized blue. If that's what you want to do, and that's it, that also works too. I'm just telling you how the Chaos Codex presents them, which is with that green highlighting, which does look good too, and you can mix and match the two and have a really slick looking force. So that is entirely up to you. Anyways, with that said, that's the Alpha Legion post Heresy for at a glance. Share your thoughts, of course, in the comment section below. I know I'm going to get plenty of comments. We're going to go, they're actually loyal. You believe what you want. They're traitors, scum in my eyes. But I'm a dirty loyalist, so what do I know, right? Anyway, that's also food for thought for plenty of other rambles outside of an at-a-glance situation. So thanks very much for tuning in. Leave your question, thoughts, requests, and your own comments in the comment section below, like I said. And until next time, take it easy.